I think that the characters, of course, express the character of that high priest, but it has no difference at all so far as the power of the Gohonzon is concerned. None whatsoever. All Gohonzons of equal power, whether it's your Gohonzon in your own sitting room at home or the Dai Gohonzon. They're all of equal power. All right. Yes, Philip.
If we, were talking about this the other day, like Gohonzon and another solar system, would it be...
The what, sorry?
Another solar system, let's say. Would it be like the same intent, but probably with different...
I can't understand that.
If we were going into a different solar system,
solar system?
Different universe.
Yes.
Would that be the same intent? Would they have the Gohonzon there?
Yes.
In the same sort of thought, or the language?
No, it's unlikely to be in the same characters, right? But the same meaning and the same Buddha state that Gohonzon would be in.
And would they chant like...
No, it would mean the same. So there is another question on this point. We'll come to it a bit later. Okay. Right.
Next one. What is the true meaning of human revolution? From Paul Samuels.
Human revolution was a term that was first invented by Mr. Toda, second president of the Soka Gakkai, and it's been used widely ever since. Right at the beginning of Sensei's novel of many volumes called The Human Revolution, Sensei says, unfortunately I haven't got it here, but words to the effect that a human revolution in one person can change not only that person, but a whole nation and indeed the whole world. So the human revolution is the inner reformation of life that's achieved through practice to the Gohonzon. So the human revolution, in other words, is the process of changing one's karma and attaining Buddhahood. So the result of the human revolution is that the Buddha state in our lives becomes the main tendency of our lives rather than, one or other of the other nine worlds. So this is really what human revolution is. The complete inner transformation of a person. The transformation of those negative and destructive aspects of human life which cause war or pollution and unhappiness into something which is great and valuable, isn't it? That's really the human revolution. Is that clear, Paul?
Yes.
All right.
Well, I think we'd better just go through these, and if we have got time at the end, we'll have any others, because we've got about 4 pages of very closely typed questions. Okay. Next one's also from Paul Samuels. A visiting Japanese member giving guidance said that youth don't take their problems seriously. They only put their idea before the Gohonzon. What did he mean?
I don't know. Paul, can you just enlarge on that a bit? This is a very strange statement which doesn't make sense to me. And obviously didn't make sense to you. In what context was it said?
Well, just general guidance he's giving, and maybe it wasn't translated correctly, I don't know. What he's indicating is that if you take those problems that seriously, and that face reality of those problems, and when they chant, you tend to put the idea.
Well, I don't think it applies to the UK, because I think young men in the UK take their problems too seriously. Don't you think? A visiting Japanese member giving guidance said that youth don't take their problems seriously. They only put their idea before the Gohonzon. What did he mean? Maybe their desires, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I think we must say, Paul, that this translation or something must have been wrong, because it simply doesn't make sense in any way. It doesn't say that, though. You mean making the problem your Honzon? I don't know. It's very difficult to understand. But, of course, what Adam just said is an important point, isn't it? That your problem can become your honzon, your object of worship, if you become totally absorbed by it and you forget Causton Rufu. This is the importance of the concept of Causton Rufu. Not only, of course, in what it will achieve for the world, what will achieve for our families and for our society, but also it provides balance in our life, doesn't it? As we've said several times on this course. The two acts of jigyo and keta, practice for yourself, jigyo, practice for others, keta, are a natural rhythm of life, in fact. Human beings were not designed just to think of themselves. Human beings really exist in an environment. So if they cut themselves off from that environment and become totally absorbed within themselves, something's going to go wrong in their lives, isn't it? So the practice of jigyo and keta is the natural rhythm of human life. And actually all life, for that matter, is not only going inwards, but it's going outwards, isn't it? Even a tree scatters its seeds everywhere. So this rhythm is extremely important. This is why we've kept on emphasizing Causton Rufu on this course. And the truth is, of course, that what is for Causton Rufu is for your happiness. So looked at perhaps from a deeper point of view, we are born into this world to fulfill the function of bodhisattvas of the earth. Therefore, the truth is we can't be happy unless we're doing that alongside, our personal, what's necessary for our personal selves. This is the truth of it. And of course, the more we realize this through the practice, the more happy we become. So what's for our happiness is exactly and totally parallel and linked with what is best for Causton Rufu, and vice versa. So if you're worrying about a decision, for example, you can chant, not only is this best for me, is it best for Causton Rufu? And it's much more easy to chant about something to ask whether it's best for Causton Rufu. When you say, is it best for me, and chant about that, emotion tends to get in the way. But with Causton Rufu, there's no emotion. So this is the best way to judge whether what you're doing is for your happiness. So of course, everything valuable is for Causton Rufu. That's the truth of it, isn't it? To be able to pass an examination well and get a good degree, and through that establish yourself strongly in society, is for Causton Rufu, isn't it? And so on and so on. So jigyo and keta for ourselves and others is an extremely important concept. We mustn't forget Causton Rufu. If we do, we'll just find ourselves wallowing about in our own mud, as I put it often. And through that, our lives become stagnant. Kazo said the other day about pressing the spring down. Practice for yourself, if you like to look at it from that way, is pressing the spring down through the power of your daimoku, so that that spring can be released and go outwards. If the spring is constantly kept pressed down, then we get a feeling of heaviness and stagnancy, however much daimoku we may be chanting. Isn't it? Okay, so whether that's what that question, that guidance was all about or not, anyway, we've given an answer. Okay.
Another one from Paul Samuels. What is the relationship between our present physical personalities and our true eternal selves? What is the relationship between our present physical personalities and our true eternal selves?
Well, what Nichiren Daishonin taught is that we all have a fundamental nature. And this fundamental nature exists eternally. So he expressed that very beautifully. I always get them the wrong way around. In the Gosho, when he said, a plum is a plum, a pear is a pear, a peach is a peach, and a cherry is a cherry. Each one is supreme in itself. So the tragedy of human life is that people are always trying to be something that they aren't. Maybe because they feel that's what other people expect of them, or because of their pride, this is the image I want to present. It's not a conscious thing, something rising from one's subconscious. But as a result of that, of course, people live a life which is full of tensions, because in a sense you could say they're acting or pretending all the time, keeping up some sort of image which is not their true selves. So in fact people are imprisoned by this. But what Nichiren Daishonin said, each one is supreme in itself. There's no point in a plum trying to be a cherry, or a peach trying to be a pear, which is what people are doing. Because actually each one is supreme. Each one is unique. Each one has a unique purpose in life or mission. Each one has something incredibly great and valuable and good to offer. So of course the process of the Buddhist practice is to help us to discover what our unique true self is. That is why Nichiren Daishonin called the Gohonzon Kanjin no Honzon, the object of devotion for observing your life or mind. Through practicing to the Gohonzon, we gradually, of course, see our weaknesses, but we also begin to see our true great self. The beauty of the plum, if you like, that I am, I begin to see. So through that process of kanjin, observing your life, you can gradually polish it, repair the weak places, strengthen the weak places, and bring out the greatness. This is really what the practice is about, incredible thing. So then you can find true happiness. You can't be happy if you're not being yourself. And through our karma, which involves, of course, our upbringing, what happens to us when we're a child, how other people behave to us, everything, we put on a facade. And this facade is terribly difficult to live up to. Or, if we don't put on a facade, we may feel we're nothing, shrink into little mice, timid things, living in little corners, or like worms underground. That's the opposite extreme, isn't it? Yet, that little mouse of a person is actually incredibly great. They're a cherry tree, maybe, with all that magnificent blossom every spring. So this is the teaching that Nichiren Daishonin gave to us. So, in other words, our physical selves is what we see at this moment. But within that physical manifestation lies our true inner self. Plum or cherry, pear or peach, whatever it is. And through the practice of Buddhism, we reveal that true self more and more. And that true self, of course, is eternal. So we carry our true self within the entity or kernel of our life continuously from lifetime to lifetime. But the way we manifest it, of course, varies and is different according to our karma. Okay. Is that all right, Paul?
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Andy.
The guidance that I often hear is that seems to contradict what you say, is when people don't feel that their mission or what they're able to do is a certain thing, and they're told not to limit themselves to a certain view, and it seems that what you're saying is, well, we are a certain way, and we're not meant to be another way.
Oh no, what I'm saying is, yes, we are a magnificent cherry, say, but because of the pressure of life and our lower worlds and our sensitivity to what other people think of us and all these other things, we invent, subconsciously, through these pressures, we invent a character, if you like, and we play that part through a lifetime, unless we discover that in fact it is a part we're playing, and then through the practice of Buddhism bring out our true selves. Then we're free and happy.
Yeah, so what I mean is sometimes when people are trying to encourage you to do things and you just don't feel, you want to do it, or it is, and they'll say, oh no, there's no limit, you've got to get on with them. And sometimes I just don't feel that there's any need for me to do it.
Well, of course, to make this change, to reveal your true self, which is really like a beautiful flower blossoming, requires effort and energy. So that's why people will encourage people to really, try to make great causes so that they can achieve that change. So of course in the end it's up to oneself. I mean, people can encourage you, whether you do it or not is up to you. But I think the more effort, the truth is that the more effort you make, of course, the more soon you will get the reward. So in the end, Buddhism's up to oneself, isn't it? And the speed of one's progress is up to oneself. All right. Okay.
The next one is from a nameless inquirer, well-known anonymous. Why is there life and death? Why not just void?
It's a great question, isn't it? Why is there life and death? Why not just void? The reason there is life and death is because both have an important purpose in the life of the universe. So, death in Buddhism, as you know, is called ku. You enter the state of ku, K-U. Kazo mentioned it yesterday in his lecture. This is a state of latency, which is neither existence nor non-existence. So Kazo gave the example of anger, which definitely exists in one's life, because the moment something triggers it off in your environment, it appears, doesn't it, from nowhere, and manifests itself. But once that incident has happened, your anger disappears. But it certainly doesn't die, because something else happens and it appears again. So that anger, in other words, goes into a state of latency, or ku, an unseen state where it still exists, yet can't be seen. So life is what we call the state of being seen, manifest. Death is the state where we're unseen or latent. So everything Buddhism is pointing out in the whole universe is doing this. Anger appears and disappears. All the other emotions appear and disappear, don't they? We also appear and disappear. Why should we be any different? It's absurd, isn't it, to even think of such a thing? So why is the period of latency necessary for human life, death? Because the physical being must disintegrate. Things physical, material, inevitably decay. So there is a limit to everything physical. Therefore, the entity of life, which is you or me, once the physical manifestation of it has decayed and died or finished, we have to go into a period of latency in order to generate sufficient life force to take on a new physical form. So this takes great energy. So this is beginning to be understood, of course, in science. Scientists know through their observations and experiments that some core or kernel has the ability to attract matter, which in its turn, through various chemical processes, can develop life. They know that a star, even though it's an enormous thing, they know that something attracts matter, some entity, and that this over billions of years grows, into a star, which may have life on it, like a planet, like this Earth, and then over billions and billions of years, it goes through the cycle of life, growth, decline, death. The star then explodes and disintegrates, diffuses into the universe, right? But the entity of that star will still exist. So what Nichiren Daishonin teaches, and this is especially in the Gosho called Shoho Sho, the true entity of life in volume 1, what he points out is that life consists of a myriad entities, each of which has its fundamental nature, as we were saying previously, and manifests itself, in a living form, in a steady, constant cycle. So within that you have the situation of each one supporting the other. Every organism which forms around that entity is supporting everything else. So the cells in your body have an entity, right? Each one is a living entity. The doctors know that those cells replace themselves every 7 years, right? So that is the cycle of life of a cell in your body. It works very fast because the moment that cell dies, it's replaced immediately. Yet it definitely does die and is reborn. So there's tremendous energy within that little cell, which creates its new form. Immediately it's replaced. So everything in the universe is doing that. No reason why human beings should be any different. So this is an incredible thought, isn't it? So the cells of our body support us. If the cells didn't replace themselves immediately, we'd be in a funny old state, wouldn't we? So they support us. We in turn support this planet. The planet itself supports the galaxy. The galaxy itself supports the sun, and so on and on and on it goes. In the boundless universe. Each thing supporting the other. So of course, if stupidity didn't reign in this world, and people really understood that, there wouldn't be any pollution, would there? There wouldn't be any war. It's people's ignorance to this fact of life that we suffer as we suffer at the moment in this particular age of Nopo. Okay, so that is really why there is life and death. Death has an important purpose. So really death is a phase of life, isn't it? In the eternal sense. Why should we? Because life is life. It's what the universe consists of. You might just as well say, why should there be a universe? The universe is. And the universe, none of us know its extent, except that it's boundless in terms of space and time. So it's no good saying, why is there a universe? The universe is. Life is. Life is the universe. Right? The universe is life. And life is. No good trying to get away from it. It's there in one. No point, is there? Just wasting one's time. The universe is. There's no point in saying, why is there a universe? Life is, and life is incredible. This is the point that Buddhism is saying. Life is the most amazing thing in all the universe. So when you're happy, you think life's great. When you're unhappy, you don't like it. Buddhism is teaching you how to live happily always, no matter what obstacles, what difficulties appear. Then you can live a really valuable, happy life, and then you really understand life is the most precious treasure. Okay. Right.
Next one from Mr. Ron Smith. Can you, excuse me, can you explain further the functions of the four devils and their relevance to devil worship? The function of the four devils and their relevance to devil worship.
My goodness. Well, better take the second part first. Their relevance, the function of devils and their relevance to devil worship. So, devil worship is, of course, primitive, and it's related somewhat to the view in other religions, including Christianity, that the devil is something outside us, that there is some incredible, horrible influence that can enter our lives and take possession of it. So you hear people talking about being possessed by devils. This is a very fearful concept. If one's life, for instance, is very low, and one's doing all sorts of things that constantly make one regret, people can even begin to feel, if they know nothing else, in their ignorance, am I possessed by the devil? What a horrible thought, isn't it? Being possessed by the devil. Now, I think I wrote an editorial on it not long ago. But still, in this world, these ceremonies go on to exorcise the devil. This is a very primitive thing. It's done by witch doctors in Africa, and it's done by, I'm afraid, Christian ministers as well. And to me, it fills me with disgust. Such ceremonies are based on superstition and are fearful and horrible and have the most dreadful effect, I think, on a lot of people. So Buddhism is pointing out that the devilish force of life, which in Buddhism is described often by the word devil, is inherent in all human life. Therefore, it's nothing to be afraid of. Of course, it's something to battle with, but it's nothing to be afraid of because it's part of life. So, what we have to do, we discussed in the lecture 2 days ago. There's no need to go over it all again. It's a part of human life. It's an important part of human life because that struggle between the devil and the Buddha, if you like to put it that way, in one's life, is what the energy of life comes from. The struggle between negative and positive. So devil worship or black magic or all these things are extremely harmful, of course, to the people who do it. In the end, devil worship or worshipping the lower worlds in your life, the negative aspect, the destructive aspect of the lower worlds in one's life, isn't it? This is what we're doing. So in the process, we can do ourselves irreparable harm, viewed from the point of view of cause and effect. And the harm is not to other people, or it no need to be. The harm is to oneself. So Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is the most powerful force in the universe, obviously. It's the force of life itself. And that force is essentially creative, essentially always working for value in the universe and in ourselves. So if anyone should feel that someone's put a spell on them or anything like that, all they do have to do is chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. that nasty influence through the thoughts of other people, hasn't got a chance. About my first leader in Tokyo, who was a young American, 23 years old. He was really a great person, and he taught me a lot in my first year of practice. But when he first started to practice, he was heavily on drugs in California. And he'd started because he wanted shelter for the night. He was down and out, and he was filled with these awful things. And a girl said to him, okay, you can come and spend the night on one condition, that you chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. So he sat down in front of a Gohonzon and he laughed at it and shouted obscene things at it. And then she said, you've got to chant properly, otherwise you must go this minute. And he said, okay, I'll chant. And he chanted for drugs, more drugs. And the next day, there was a knock on the door. This was in rather a low part of the town. And the chap there with a suitcase, he said, take this quick, the police are after me. The suitcase was full of drugs. So he went mad. For a month he went mad on these drugs. Until he became so ill, and he was taken to hospital, and the doctors said he would die in something like 2 or 3 weeks. And he then started to chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo with a sincere heart, because in fact, even deep in that life, he didn't want to die. And from then onwards, of course, his life gradually changed. He's one of the great future leaders of America now. So that is how the Gohonzon works. If you chant for something that is evil or hurtful or harmful, whether it's concerning yourself, it bounces back on you very rapidly, and you get horrible, butchy punishment by the law of cause and effect. Okay?
Next one. What predictions do you really make about Nichiren Daishonin? Where and what exactly is the wording? What predictions did Shakyamuni make about Nichiren Daishonin? Where and what exactly is the wording?
Well, really, this is a matter of study, and it's not too easy, not too difficult to find out the answer to this question. I recommend that you really begin to study, regularly, because then you can discover these things. But just to give you Nichiren, where and what exactly is the wording? Well, I haven't got the exact wording here, because we haven't got all the books of reference here. But first of all, let me say that if this is because of some doubt, Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism over 700 years has constantly been challenged in debate by learned Buddhist scholars and by priests about a sect. And never once on any single occasion have they lost that debate. Every single time they've won. So whether it's from the academic point of view or whether it's the pure point of view of faith, Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism can prove its validity in all 3 proofs which Nichiren Daishonin himself said the true religion must satisfy. That is to say, documentary proof, theoretical proof, and actual proof in this lifetime. So, of course, there's not time now to go into all these various quotations, but I'll just give you one which came to my mind when I read the question. In volume 2 of the Gosho, the English Gosho, page 304, if you want to check it. The Gosho is called Persecution by Sword and Staff. Nichiren Daishonin says this: as I mentioned before, I was attacked by the sword at Komatsubara in Tojo, and later at Tatsunokuchi. No one else has thus been assaulted for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, even once, but I, Nichiren, have been so assaulted twice. As for being attacked with staves, I have already been struck in the face by Shofubo with the scroll of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra. In those days, the sutras were carried on huge poles, and he was struck with this. Strangely enough, it is precisely that volume, i.e. the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra, which carries the prediction that the votaries of the Lotus Sutra will be attacked with staves. Shofubo hit me before dozens of people, and though I knew it was for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, being human I felt miserable and ashamed. Had I had the strength, I would have wrested the weapon from his hand and trampled it to pieces, except that it was in fact the scroll of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra. So there are many quotations in the Lotus Sutra about what will happen to the votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law, that is to say, the age of Mappa. Just to give one other example, which is in the other volume, and the Gosha is called On the Buddha's Prophecy, and it's on page 109 if you want to look it up later, in volume 1. Rather, the actual page of the prophecies, or interesting ones, is page 113. Question: how can you be certain that you are the votary of the Lotus Sutra prophesied to appear at the beginning of the latter day of the law? Answer: a passage from the Lotus Sutra states how much worse it will be in the world after his passing. Another passage reads, there are many ignorant people who will vilify and attack us, the votaries of the Lotus Sutra, with swords and staves. A third passage says, we will be banished again and again. A fourth reads, the people will be full of hostility and will be extremely difficult to believe. A fifth reads, they will stone him and beat him with staves. A sixth reads, devils, people under their influence, spirits of the heavens and seas, sinister demons called yasha, demons which drain human vitality, and others will seize the advantage. That the people might believe in the Buddha's words, I have sought throughout Japan among the sovereign and his subjects, among priests and nuns, laymen and laywomen, for one who has fulfilled these explicit predictions, but I can find none other than myself. Now is most certainly the beginning of the latter day of the law, but had Nichiren not appeared, the Buddha's predictions would be false. So that and many other examples in the Gosho, Robin, all right? Also, I can't remember which UK it was, but the lecture that I gave in Oxford University was published, which was very much to do with the documentary validation of Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism in the flow, or the direct flow from Shakyamuni. So it's probably worth looking at that too, if you want a sort of potted version. Okay. Oh yes, because the system in those days for debate was that both sides had to be fully satisfied with the outcome, and what is more, in the earlier days, the priests who were the losers promised to embrace the teachings of those who won the debate. So, in other words, it had to be fully satisfied. It was a very formal matter, holding a religious debate. Each side would appoint people to judge, you know, people obviously high in understanding and wisdom. Okay. Not at that time, no, that wasn't a debate. That was a declaration. He declared Nam-myoho Renge Kyo on that day. Yes, he did, but it was a lecture, if you like, not a debate. All the people had come together because Nichiren Daishonin had been away for a long time studying, and they knew that after he came back he'd been deep in thought and about this lecture that he was going to give on his findings or conclusions as a result of his trip and studying all the Buddhist teachings, you see. So they came to hear his declaration, and they got an incredible shock, of course, when he met it. Okay. Right.
Another 2 from Robin Challis, who was obviously monopolising the typewriter. What does it mean to go on Tozan? What does it mean to go on Tozan?
That's a good question, too. As you know, everything in Buddhism is based on cause and effect. The law of causality, as Kazuo was explaining yesterday, underlies everything. So, strictly speaking, there is no difference between the power of Yoga Honzen and the power of the Daiga Honzen. There is no difference. But what matters is the cause that you're making. So, this, of course, began with Nichiren Daishonin himself in his lifetime. Abutsubo, for example, who was well over 80, made 3 journeys from Sado Island, where he first met Nichiren Daishonin, to Mount Manobu on the mainland. Very hazardous journeys, because he desired to see Nichiren Daishonin, and he desired to hear his guidance, and he desired to get inspiration from him. So this, of course, is the classical example of the spirit of Tozan, that this old man should make this great effort. And we know that his wife strongly supported him, though she must have wondered whether she'd ever see him again. But she strongly supported him, Senichiyama, and Nichiren Daishonin wrote Gosho to her saying, you know, that her support for him was really praiseworthy, and that the benefits of Tozan would come equally to her. So it's the making of the great and very pure cause of desiring to see the Buddha. The Daiga Honzen is the life of Nichiren Daishonin, isn't it? So is our Honzen. The life of Buddha is there. Human life in its highest state, the Buddha state. So the fact that we make great effort to go to see the original Gonzen inscribed for all mankind by Nichiren Daishonin is an incredible cause which will reap an incredible effect. We have to struggle always when we go there. One way or the other, everyone has to. Either it's to find the money, or to get away from our jobs, or maybe other people encounter all sorts of other difficulties. Even coming on this course, you found difficulty. So it's the struggle to overcome all those obstacles and get there, no matter what, that brings the great reward. So of course it is true that, as I remember Mr. Williams once said, the Daiga Honzen is the powerhouse. Our Honzens are like electric light bulbs. You know, the power is the same. But of course, the other effect it has on you, that when you do get in front of the Daiga Honzen, it's just sort of natural that you really chant with your whole life, you know, more probably than with more sincerity and the more effort and with a more open life than you've ever chanted before. Therefore, it's true that the quality of your daimoku in front of the Daiga Honzen is fantastic. Therefore, that again, of course, brings incredible benefit in changing one's karma. So, the Daiga Honzen in the Shohondo is the place where one makes the causes for changing one's unhappy karma better than anywhere else in the world, because of the cause you've made in getting there. You understand? So in fact it's similar to going to see Nichiren Daishonin. People came to see him, and in return he would write them a gosho. I've no doubt too he gave them verbal guidance. But he gave them a gosho which was priceless treasure, because it told them how to change whatever it was that was making them unhappy. Okay, does that answer it? Right.
Why are the relations between men and women mentioned so rarely in the Gosho? What is the Buddhist view of marriage?
Well, I don't think the relations between men and women are rarely mentioned in the Gosho. They're mentioned quite a lot, in fact. And, of course, very, very much so in that Gosho we did the other day, called Letter to the Brothers. But in all sorts of places, he mentions the relationship between man and woman. I've just mentioned another one in his Gosho to Senichiyama, the wife of old Butsubo, who made these journeys on Tozan. So it's mentioned a lot. What is the Buddhist view of marriage? To be married, of course I'm talking about being married in front of the Gohonzon. Being married in a registry office is an administrative convenience, isn't it? For tax and all the rest of it. But being married in front of the Gohonzon, of course, is important, because in front of that Gohonzon, the man and the girl make a commitment. They make a commitment to the Gohonzon, to really live creative lives together, to work for Kosen Rufu, and to never stop practicing, and as that Gosho day before yesterday says, to be as a sun and the moon to each other, one always lighting the other one's path if one is down.